Welcome, everybody. It's time to pick up your board, swim out into the ocean, and see if you can catch that sales pipeline as it's starting to curl your way with the master blaster, the Silver Surfer himself, Matt Hines.
How we doing, Paul?
I'm doing good today. I thought I'd bring back I always liked the Silver Surfer analogy. You're kind of like that mysterious person flying between the planets here, saving galaxies.
Are you saying Are you calling me old?
No. Silver. Just silver-haired, maybe. Well, or I don't know.
I have no hair. Okay. We're gonna let Paul stop digging. We're gonna start the show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on another episode of Sales Pipeline Radio. Excited to have you here. If you're joining us live, as we record every week live, Thursday at 11:30 Pacific, 2:30 Eastern. Thank you for joining us. I know we've got a number of people that do join us live on a regular basis. Also, for those of you on the podcast, whether you're listening today or tomorrow or next week or later on, thanks so much for joining us. And every episode of Sales Pipeline Radio, past, present, and future, is available at salespipelineradio.com. We, every week, are featuring some of the best and brightest minds in B2B sales and marketing, and today is no different. Now, I have to give a special thanks to our guest today because we had someone else that is going to try to join us again in a future episode. But, it's the fall. It's getting colder. We're in and out of heating and different air conditioning. So anyway, previous guest got a little sick, did not have a voice, could not join us. Last night, at the last minute possible, we had our guest today join us, and I couldn't be happier, and he's been on my list to get on the radio show anyway for a while. We have Scott Salkin. He is the founder of Allbound. Scott, thank you so much for not only joining us on Sales Pipeline Radio, but doing it so last minute.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here.
So one of the reasons that I thought about Scott for today, not only is he a great speaker, he's got some great insights on B2B marketing as well as running and growing a business. We were together on a panel yesterday at Dreamforce, the annual Salesforce conference, and it was on the topic of sales enablement. And we're going to get a little bit into some sales enablement and sales and marketing alignment questions, but first, I want, Scott, just to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Allbound and the work you guys are doing specifically on the channel marketing and channel management front.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to. So I'm the founder of Allbound. So Allbound is a SaaS platform. Started up about 2 years ago, going through an accelerator program in San Francisco called AccelPrize before getting to market, and now growing here in Phoenix, Arizona. And we focus 100% on helping companies sell more effectively through their channel partners. So when I say channel partners, I mean referral partners, resellers, VARs, MSPs, a ton of technology companies out there. They drive the majority of their business. Some of them, 100% of their pipeline of their revenue goes through channel partners, not just the traditional old hardware players, but also a lot of SaaS and software companies these days in the subscription economy. So there's some really core elements to making sure you have an effective channel. And, the most important thing is keeping your channel engaged. And so in order to do that, we focus on a couple of key areas. One being sales enablement, of course, partner enablement, enabling your partners, but also pipeline management, making sure you're generating and driving the right leads and providing the right tools and resources as deals move through the pipeline. It's just collaboration and communication with partners. So, there's so much reliance on technology these days. You also have to make sure that you're treating partners like people and that you're collaborating with them and working with them in person. So our technology, our platform helps do those three things, and we're very passionate about it, and love helping companies figure out the strategy and then use the right tools to grow great channels to grow their companies.
Well, and yesterday when I asked you this question on the panel, we talked about the idea that sort of channel management is so hard. You said, yeah, it's so hard. I'm so frustrated. I created a company to try to solve it.
Yeah.
Selling through channel could definitely be a double-edged sword. It's on one hand, it represents a virtual motivated sales team that is completely, commission-based, that is completely incentivized to go out and bring new deals to you. But you lose a lot of control over the process. You've got an inside sales team or a direct sales team. You control those. Those are your employees. You have more control, more visibility into what's going on. But talk about how you've seen both in your career as well as your clients sort of manage that balance between opportunity and the complexity of the management side.
Yeah, I like to talk a lot about, my career started at Cisco Systems. I was an account executive there, and Cisco is one of those places where, we use the term never sell alone quite often here now, where at Cisco, you never sold alone. Every deal you ever went into was with a channel partner. And so the relationships with those partners were critical. And And not only did they help you pre-sales and to make sure that you were positioning the right technology, that you're helping put together the right strategy and helping to get the deal closed, but they're also really critical post-sales, maintaining that relationship with the customer who was, at the core of the entire business. So building those partnerships and making sure they were, not just something that was there to drive revenue, but also something that was there to make customers more successful and deliver more value at the back end, was an extremely important part of the business. And that came from the top down. Cisco, at that time, our CEO was John Chambers, who I'm sure a lot of folks listening here today will know that name. But John, and the whole company on down was passionate about the role that partners played within the business. I think that's one of the most important things that goes along with growing a great channel. Like you were saying, channel partners and these businesses that you're working with to help you grow, they're basically volunteer sales teams. They're not getting paid until they close deals. So you got to make sure that they're aligned with your business, that they are being treated well, that they're part of your culture, that they're not just kind of sitting out on an island on their own, waiting to get leads delivered to them so they can, possibly drive them through the pipeline. You got to help them do those types of things to make sure that, that's a piece of your entire culture from leadership on down to the sales team, the marketing team, the operations team. Channel touches a ton of pieces of your business, which is part of why it's so complex, but also part of why it can be so effective if you do it right.
Talking today on Sales Pipeline Radio with Scott Salkin. He is the founder and CEO of Allbound. Scott is a very, as you can tell, a well-spoken guy, but also a very humble guy. He's not going to tell you things like he was Arizona's top 35 entrepreneurs under 35 a couple of years ago, was the 40 under 40 winner with the Business Journal down in Arizona. So excited to have him here talking about channel marketing. If you are doing anything around channel marketing, I'd highly encourage you to go to allbound.com. A great platform to check out, but scroll down the page, you're going to see a lot of great insights and great content to help channel marketers. And, it's interesting. You see, you think about the sales and marketing literature that exists, the best practices. And, as I've gotten more sort of familiar with your blog and spending more time there, I'm realizing just how few other sources of best practices exist in the industry around channel sales, channel marketing. Why is that? Why do we see so little focus, not just from a product and a platform standpoint, but so little content focused on the channel?
Yeah, it's interesting. We even call our newsletter the niche because, channel is so niche, and that's one of the things that I found out there while I was, working more in the field as a channel practitioner, that it was hard to find content and resources and things to really help me advance my career. And eventually, as I started, started my own consulting company and then found Allbound, that was one of our real big goals, was to create more content and resources and to provide more things out there that will make channel professionals more successful. And I think, as much as the channel is something that's been in business for a long time, it's also something that, interestingly enough, is still maturing. I look at some other areas of technology and in sales right now, and I can even consider customer success sales, but look how that's evolved over the last few years and how almost the category has been created. And I still think that the category of channel is almost being recreated right now. For so long, it was so purposeful and important for companies like Microsoft and IBM and HP and Intel and all these companies that you thought of as traditional channel players. And then there was a little bit of a kind of a renaissance. People were starting to wonder, what is going to happen to the channel? How are partners going to work as we move into the cloud and the subscription economy, where it's not so much about margins anymore, but it's more so about how partners provide value throughout the entire customer life cycle. And I think one of the reasons that there just hasn't been as much content and resources and thought leadership out there about it is because there's been a lot of transition and a lot of change that's gone on in the space. And a lot of thought leaders are just starting to come out more and more these days with more information about the channel. And we're trying to be leaders in that area, but it's fun to see some more folks these days start to write about that as more companies realize the value of what a channel can bring to a business, not just, again, from sales, but through driving efficiencies to the entire company and affecting KPIs like customer acquisition costs and total lifetime value of the customer and all the important things to grow in a business these days. Channel can have a big impact, and we're starting to see more thought leadership and more information put out there about that, and it's exciting to see. But it's definitely still in a kind of rematuring phase in terms of what's happening with channel and partner programs right now.
Yeah, I would agree, and I also think that a lot of channel programs are very transactional and very focused just on getting deals closed, almost to the detriment of both parties. I think you, like me, you probably see a lot of different channel programs out in the field. We were both at Dreamforce together yesterday, and I'm actually today in Arizona, just in your neck of the woods at another software company's partner conference. And you can see the clear differences between companies that simply treat their partners as a channel. They treat them as a source of sales, and those that also look to enable the channel and help make that channel better. Just because your channel has access to your customer doesn't mean that they have any idea how to sell to the customer or follow up with their prospects or manage a pipeline on their own that's going to make them better. So it seems to me that a small investment in making the channel more successful, making them better, creates better results as well as greater loyalty. But that seems to be the exception to the rule. I mean, what do you see in the market? Where do you see the best companies investing and positioning to create a more effective channel?
Yeah, it used to be, I feel like for a long time, and this is one of the frustrations I had before I started Allbound, was that, the channel, like you said, was very transactional. It was very much focused on through partner marketing. How many marketing campaigns, how many cold calls do we get our partners to make to try and have them generate leads? And then, how many deals can they close? And then it was also about how many partners can we get? The more partners we have, the more successful we're going to be. So let's just get as many partners as we possibly can and see how many deals we can get them to close, but without really paying much attention to the strategy, their engagement, the enablement, the real important kind of higher touch pieces to make those partners successful. And it's kind of taken on more of like you can almost think about it. A lot of folks have heard about account-based marketing, account-based sales, account-based everything these days. Think a little bit about what's happening right now. It's account-based partnering. Flipping the whole channel funnel, where folks are starting to put a lot more focus on the partners that they see as being more successful, that are aligned better to their business, that they can really bring in and align to the practices of their company and build great partnerships, not just with the company, with the people. We used to often hear partners referred to just as the company names, like, hey, I'm partnered with Insight or I'm partnered with CDW. But really who you're partnered with are the individual sales reps within those companies who you're trying to drive engagement with and who you're trying to build relationships with to help drive sales and to help make customers more successful. So the companies who we see doing it best are the ones who are really paying attention to, the higher touch pieces of that. You can still automate a lot and take care of a lot of the kind of the low-hanging fruit with technology, but, what can you be doing in terms of making sure that, for example, your partners are not the last one to know when you're rolling out a new product? The next time you're rolling out a marketing campaign, you release a new white paper, you create some new sales collateral or competitive documentation. The partners aren't necessarily the last ones to see that. They're part of the whole collaborative structure of your organization between sales and marketing and operations and everything else. The channel fits and is aligned directly within that it's not, again, just sitting out to the side. There used to be, I always saw that companies would create their sales and MarTech stack, and then they'd have a separate channel stack. And I always thought, man, why would you ever want to do that? Why not, especially these days, include the channel stack as part of your MarTech stack and include channel technology as part of your MarTech stack. Integrate it and leverage the best-of-breed technology you have. If you're using marketing automation, if you're using CRM, if you're using account-based marketing technology, how can you leverage that for your channel, not create an entirely separate stack? So, again, I think the more aligned that channel is, and the more that comes down from top-level leadership, I know the conference you're at this week, from the CEO on down, it is a strategic initiative, and it's drilled into the rest of the company that the channel and these partners that we have are core to us growing our business. And the more that can be part of that message throughout the company and the culture of the company, the better you're going to be. And that goes along to everything that you're doing in terms of enablement, tools and resources, and how you manage your pipeline and everything. It's got to be integrated in there.
Absolutely. And I think we some breaking news here, Paul. We just invented a new term, account-based partnering, ABP, which like what we need in this industry is clearly more account-based things.
Right.
Just a little bit, but I think, Scott, your points there are really, really well taken, and I think that I don't know. It feels like there's an 80-20 rule here. I think a little bit of investment, a little bit of better thought and precision and forethought can really help people get more out of their channel. We're going to have to take a quick break here, pay some bills. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with more from Scott. We're going to pivot and talk a little more about sales and marketing alignment and the relationship between sales and marketing has happened. Find out what Scott's been driving at Allbound and what he's seeing elsewhere in the market. Thanks very much for listening. We'll be right back on Sales Pipeline Radio.
In a world where the speed of innovation and change in B2B marketing has never been greater, the only thing bigger is the need for clarity, for a blueprint, for a guide to what's really working and how to apply it specifically to increase sales pipeline growth, velocity, and conversion. That's what you'll find in the Modern Marketer's Field Guide. Download it free at HeinzMarketing.com. Marketers acknowledge that account-based marketing is important, but what does that really mean? ABM requires a deep understanding of your target accounts and the people within its internal buying committee. Are you prepared to launch and drive results from an ABM program in your organization? Get the recording for the Modern Marketers Workshop, ABM, From Strategy to Action and Results, a fully online, on-demand workshop that includes an interactive workbook, the presentation slides, and templates, all for $195. Visit www.heinzmarketing.com/workshops. That's HEINZ marketing.com, and get started now.
You know, Matt, I just went to Google and looked up account-based partnership, and it's already there, and both of your pictures are listed right next to the Wikipedia entry there. So very quick it happened here.
I was going to say someone had better go to GoDaddy and get accountbasedpartnering.com right away. For those of you listening live, you're probably going to get first dibs on cracking that. Although I bet you during the commercial break, Scott probably had his team already working on that, knowing that that's coming down the line. Well, thanks very much again for joining us here on Sales Pipeline Radio. We got a few more minutes here with Scott Salkin, our guest. He's the founder of Allbound, a fantastic platform for managing channel relationships. Highly encourage you to go to allbound.com, check out what they're doing. Lots of great content if you are at all involved in managing channel partnerships and driving any sales to the channel. Highly encourage you to check out their content. Lots of really good stuff there. So, Scott, I wanted to pivot a little bit for the rest of our time here and talk a little bit about that relationship between sales and marketing. Our panel yesterday was very focused on the changing dynamics between sales and marketing. And there's a lot of ways to look at this. In some cases, I see marketing now reporting up through sales as part of what companies will describe as a revenue team. I'm seeing marketing organizations manage inside sales and sales development functions. Lots of moving parts. I think a lot of it seems focused on trying to drive better alignment and revenue responsibility across both organizations. What are you seeing? What are you driving at Allbound directly, and then what are you seeing in the marketplace now relative to that alignment?
Yeah, well, here's what I think is the coolest thing and the most exciting thing is that I think we're at a point right now where sales and marketing agree more than ever that they need to be aligned. I think sales and marketing alignment has been a topic we've talked about for a while. The way we reach our prospects and our customers has just, been changing so much over the last, decade and a half. And sales and marketing alignment has been a big topic, but it's been an evolving topic. And I think now there's just this, concrete agreement now that sales needs marketing more than ever. And they will freely admit it that, with the top, let's say, third of the sales cycle basically being evaporated into research and self-learning by the customer, that relationship is more critical than ever. So, I think that is, the first and foremost thing that has to be looked at in terms of getting sales and marketing alignment. Everyone must agree to align. But then in order to do that, they have to agree on some really critical elements that's going to help them do so. It's not just saying, yes, sales and marketing needs to be aligned. It's saying we're going to do it, and here's how we're going to do it. And I think, it starts with some key areas. Companies needing to get their sales and marketing teams together and aligned on things like who the target buyer is and what the buying process is. Not just looking at buyer personas, but looking at actual buying processes for the organization. Looking at the revenue process, looking at conversion points throughout the entire funnel, making sure your messaging is aligned. I talked a lot yesterday about things like, making sure that that you have a lot of optimization and feedback loops. You've got communication throughout the entire process with sales and marketing, and you've got meetings and goals to review those. And when I say goals, you also may want to have service level agreements between sales and marketing in terms of what quotas look like, but also what's the follow-up process. In terms of when a lead comes in, when an MQL or an SQL is created, how is sales following up with those? What's the timing like? What's the feedback like? Where sales providing feedback back to marketing? How often is that happening? So I think it's, the agreement that sales and marketing needs to be aligned is step one, but then going through a lot of these critical elements, checking not just checking the boxes, but making sure they're there and they're strategically identified and worked on is critical for organizations and for the leadership and for the practitioners as well.
Well, this conversation is relevant to the channel discussion we had earlier as well. I think a lot of people that are managing channels treat it a little bit like a product marketing exercise traditionally, which in many companies means creating a bunch of collateral and throwing it out to a group and hoping it sticks, right? And so if that is your objective, if that is your prime focus as a channel manager, then you're leaving it to, the rest of the organization to actually drive results. If you're measuring your success based on the volume of collateral you produce for the channel versus some measure of pipeline contribution, some measure of channel marketing influence deal, I realize that's more elusive, and I know that's a lot of what you're trying to do at Allbound as well, but it seems like whether you're doing that directly or through the channel, that alignment is critical. Not easy, but it's critical.
Right. Yeah, and I think one of the most important things we heard yesterday was around not just attribution in terms of where deals are coming from and how they're being attributed to what to what campaign or what activity you're doing, but I thought one of the best terms I heard yesterday was influence. What is influencing deals to move through the pipeline and actually close? In influence in terms of content, influence in terms of events you're attending, events you're speaking at, relationships you're having, dinners you're hosting, meals you're having with customers or prospects, referrals that are coming in the door. How are things being influenced throughout your pipeline, and how are you measuring those things and relating it back? And with the technology stacks you can put together today, you're able to actually put some data and put some actual factual information behind those. And I think it's important. And it's important when you're developing content and when you're developing tools and resources that it's not just the overall content strategy that you're putting together, but that you're really looking at things like when and how your content's being used, where it's being found and how it's being found and why it's being used by your prospects by your sales reps, where in the sales cycle, and how that influence is happening. And I think, the more you can actually get some information and some feedback from your sales and marketing teams on effectiveness, the better you understand, what you need to be creating, when you need to be creating it, and how it's going to influence each stage of the sales cycle. And I think there's tools to do that, but I also think it goes back to communication and how your team is working together, and it goes back to that alignment piece.
So you're still in San Francisco, I assume, still finishing out the Dreamforce experience with 130,000 of our good friends in the software as a service world.
I heard it was 180,000 this year.
It's ridiculous. I mean, and you certainly, I felt it just walking around.
Yeah.
I was only in town for a couple of days, but just the crush of humanity is something. I just, as we wrap up here, I'm just curious, get your feedback on what you saw the last couple of days, especially for those listeners that weren't able to make it, and also, what's your strategy going into a conference of this size? I mean, it's easy to just get crazy busy and just follow the crowd and get absolutely nothing done. What's your, what did you think of this year's show, and what's your strategy at a show of this size to get the most out of it?
I mean, what I saw and what you see at Dreamforce and what you feel at Dreamforce is such a reflection of what sales and marketing is today, and the good and the bad, in terms of all of the noise and all of the information and all of the products and all of the stuff that's just out there that you've got to compete with for, very limited dollars. I mean, everyone out there almost who we're seeing at Dreamforce, if you walk into the expo hall, thousands of companies there, all with, very oftentimes hard to distinguish messaging from the guy in the booth next to them, is complex. It's complicated. You've really got to work hard to distinguish yourself, to make yourself different. And it takes a lot of work on the inside to make sure that, again, you're really identifying who those prospective buyers are, what the personas are. You're looking at your messaging and you're reviewing those with your sales team, that you're doing ride-alongs, And talk about marketing and sales alignment. When I say ride-alongs, have marketing sit on calls, listen to calls with the reps, making sure that the messaging is on cue and on par with what with what's being presented everywhere else by the thought leadership you're creating. The more content you create, the more important things like sales enablement are to make sure that your sales team's aligned with the with the message you're creating. So I think Dreamforce is such an amazing representation of what's actually happening out there right now in terms of just the, I don't want to say gold rush, but it almost is just this rush to create products and try and get them in the door, folks. And you really got to be focused on that that ROI message, the message of what you are trying to get across. And a lot of entrepreneurs, CEOs, folks listening to this call, the vision and mission and dream that you have in growing a company and how you're getting that across. So I think all those things are critical, and it's tough to distinguish yourself.
All right, last question quickly before we have to wrap up here that we like to ask people in your position. If there was a Mount Rushmore of sales, and I'm thinking about, the people that have influenced you, whether they're mentors of yours in your past, whether they are authors, speakers, bloggers, people that you've read, it can be a former boss, it can be Zig Ziglar, it can be all over the map. who are the maybe 2 or 3 people that you would put up on your personal Mount Rushmore of sales?
I don't mean to be cliche, but I always think, of course, the name that comes to mind first for me is Steve Jobs. I think what other sales guy have we seen out there in terms of not just being an innovator, but the guy who can actually, get that message across so clearly and really get you to believe so much. I think he was such an amazing sales and marketing mind that he has to be up there. From my point of view, my perspective being in technology, I think a guy like him is amazing. You see these days, so many folks writing books on sales methodology and everything else that it's hard to distinguish between all the different methodologies out there right now. But I think other folks out there, I like to go to these technology leaders. I was a huge believer in guys like John Chambers who grew and built Cisco into what it was. John did some amazing things, and he was one of those guys who was just a transformational leader who, with thousands of reps lined, in a sales conference at the end of the year, having just gone through a strenuous year and missing quota or hitting quota or wherever you were, had to re-energize that team to get back in the next day and start, going after the numbers again. Those types of leaders are amazing. So John was a great guy, and maybe kind of a little bit different of an answer I could put out there. I got to think of one more.
No, that's enough for now. I know we're going to run out of time here. I think those are. I mean, it doesn't matter that you're using people that maybe everyone thinks so, because I think it just reinforces how important these folks are and how much we have to learn from them. So, Scott, I just want to thank you again so much for joining us on Sales Pipeline Radio. We've covered a lot of good ground here. I know you're doing this while still traveling and trying to get home to what again, looking out the window, it is 80 degrees, and it is just a beautiful day here in Scottsdale. So safe travels getting home. Thanks so much for joining us, especially last minute. Encourage everyone to check out Scott's business, Allbound. Go to allbound.com if you're doing anything around channel marketing, channel sales. But a lot of great guests coming up rest of the fall into the holiday season here in the end of 2017. We're going to let you go. Join us next week on Sales Pipeline Radio. We'll have more great guests. You can join us anytime at salespipelineradio.com. Paul has his finger on the trigger, ready to move us along. Thanks very much, Paul, for all your great work. This is Matt Hines. Thanks for listening to Sales Pipeline Radio.